The Acolyte is here, the very first live-action Star Wars story to take place outside of the Skywalker saga. I have been hyped for this series ever since it was announced. So, did it live up? I say so far so good. These first two episodes remind me of Andor a bit, in the sense that we have a lot of characters and situations to introduce. I was definitely into Andor after the 3-episode premiere, but it was the latter half where I felt like the show got amazing. I think The Acolyte gets off to a faster start than Andor. I like the main cast of characters. I'm absolutely intrigued by the mysteries they've established. I love seeing the High Republic era on screen. I also think it's striking a great balance between the pulpy weirdness of Star Wars with the gravity of a murder mystery. There's a lot I like so far, but I'm not ready to call it my favorite Star Wars series yet. With my basic reaction out of the way, let's dive into these episodes scene by scene. I'm glad everything begins with a few sentences to set the stage, similar to Solo: A Star Wars Story. The more casual audience needs to understand that this is set an entire century before the prequel films, and this is an easy and Star Warsy way to accomplish that. But even for a non-casual, there is information to learn. I was interested seeing that a powerful few are learning to use the Force in secret. I'm sure the two Sith Lords are out there somewhere, and the trailers suggest we will be seeing at least one of them, but the Sith seem to have agents like May running around messing with the Jedi. On the planet Ueda, we see her asking a village, "Where is your Jedi?" The High Republic era, when this series takes place, is a time when the Jedi were more spread throughout the galaxy, living in outposts. I assume Indara has been stationed there as the local Jedi protecting and serving the planet. She even seems to be hanging out with a bunch of bar patrons, which we just didn't see very often in the Clone Wars. And those people know enough about her to laugh at May's request to fight. These are a bunch of small details that really help set the stage for the Jedi Order at this time. I like that Indara kindly stops everyone from laughing at May and says Jedi don't attack the unarmed, and then we get our first glimpse at what is driving May, because she responds that the Jedi do. We've seen in the trailers a flashback to when Sol met his Padawan, and clearly things don't go well. Whatever happened, May seems to hold the Jedi responsible, and now she's hunting down those specific Jedi that were present. May has to goad Indara into fighting by attacking everyone else in the tavern, and everything that followed was rad. The wire work and the choreography looked cool. I love that Indara refused to pull out her lightsaber until she felt it was absolutely necessary, which, yes, is in a moment of self-defense, but it's also right after she recognizes May. I think there's more to that moment, but I'm gonna save it for when we get to episode 2 and Master Torben. I love that May seems like she is truly hurt and floundering a bit. She's outmatched and struggling to keep up. She definitely gets some good hits in, fueled by her rage, but in the end, she has to threaten the life of an innocent bystander to sneak in a killing blow. We also see that she's not a complete monster out to kill anyone and everyone. She stops herself from killing the barkeep after she sees his adorable puppet child. Again, I think she is motivated by some true pain and grief that the Sith or whoever are twisting into darkness. I'm bummed that Carrie-Anne Moss is already out of the story, but I'm also not that surprised. I was guessing this would be the opening scene of the series as the catalyst for everything to follow. We know we'll see Indara again in flashbacks, and having May take down freaking Trinity right away shows that even though she can seem out of her depth, she can still get the job done. We then cut over to Osha. I think they kind of leave room for us to believe that she might have actually killed Indara when her buddy asks why she didn't come party with them on Nar Shaddaa. First off, I always love a mention of the Smuggler's Moon, but second, I don't think they were really pushing for the audience to believe Osha was the killer. She is immediately more cheerful and bright, happy to talk to her droid Pip and joke with her friends. I'm really glad the twin thing was not treated as a big twist. People had that pretty well figured out, and they weren't exactly being subtle with it in the marketing. I was a little worried that it would be like a mid-season bombshell, but instead it's revealed fairly quickly so we can move on to other mysteries. Osha is currently working on a Trade Federation ship as a mechanic. Oh, excuse me, a mechanic, which I find to be a little silly. We can just say mechanic. That word already exists in Star Wars, but that's a tiny nitpick. Because ultimately I was happy to see Nemoidians and the Trade Federation. It feels right as we're still in celebration mode for the Phantom Menace's birthday, and it's good to see this faction in its earlier stages. And surprise, surprise, they're acting exactly like a megacorporation would, loudly prioritizing their cargo over the lives of real people, and we later find out that they're sending organic beings to do outer ship repairs when it's illegal. Osha, who we now know has a very appropriate name, has to put out a fire and pauses as she deals with the trauma it reminds her of. We learn later that her family died in a fire supposedly started by May. That's the tragedy haunting May, and it's clear that it's still affecting Osha Osha as well. Before she can dwell on it, a Jedi starfighter appears. It looks like an updated Vector, which is the primary Jedi starfighter of the High Republic books and comics. I love that the same basic design is used, but it does look updated since the series takes place a century after those books. I hope we get a better look at it in future episodes. Yord and his Padawan Tassi board the ship, and I love the look of the Jedi robes. The white and gold are prevalent in the High Republic in contrast with the brown and beige we tend to see in the prequel era. Tassi has a green sash under her belt to indicate that she is a Padawan, as well as the color of her lightsaber. All of these details are taken straight from the books and comics that shaped this era. The white and gold robes are called temple robes and are used more formally. Brown and gold are mission robes, which we see later, but it looks like Yord doesn't expect to be getting into a fight on this ship. He tells the Nemoidian he's looking for Osha Anasaea, our first time hearing her full name, which matches the name of Mother Anasaea, who we've seen in the trailers as the leader of a coven of witches. I just thought May and Osha were members of the coven, but that might actually be their mother. Or maybe every member of the coven takes that last name. It's too early to tell. Before this series started, I had a feeling I would like Yord, and I was right. I like him a lot. Not in the sense that I think he's cool, I actually think he's a complete dork, but he's an entertaining dork to watch, always wanting to appear proper and looking embarrassed when Osha catches him relaxing instead of standing at attention, refusing to show any affection towards her or reciprocate her jokes. Granted, he thinks she might be a murderer, but still, that guy has got a massive stick up his evacuation port. This is where we learn the most about Osha's past, her family's death right before she joined the Jedi, and the fact that she was 8 when she became a Padawan, so she's very similar to Anakin in that regard. I like that 100 years earlier, the Jedi are still iffy about age and attachments, but are in general more flexible. Maybe the events of this story caused them to rethink things a bit, because Dooku's first Padawan, Rael Averross, was also considered to be a bit old to start his training, and he was 5. And then of course Qui-Gon Jinn eventually brings in a 9-year-old, which the Jedi Council really doesn't like. Osha is taken into custody, and then we cut over to Coruscant and the Jedi Temple. I pointed this out in my trailer breakdowns, but I love that the temple is elevated a little higher than the rest of Coruscant. You can even see trees on a pathway. The planet is still building, and a century later will have reached up to the temple, almost as if it's beginning to swallow the Order. Inside, Sol teaches a group of younglings, echoing words Obi-Wan Kenobi will one day tell Luke Skywalker. He also says to imagine diving into the Force as if it were a great ocean. A Jedi named Elzar Mann from the High Republic books saw the Force as an ocean. Many of the Jedi of this era saw the Force in their own unique ways, again showing that they were more flexible and less dogmatic. One of the younglings says she sees a fire consuming everything, which gives Sol pause. I imagine he is thinking of the same disaster that shaped May and Osha. His lesson ends, and he meets with Vernestra Rwoh, a prominent character from the books. She's now 100 years older and looking great for her age. She is clearly well respected in the Order, and I wouldn't be surprised to find out she's on the Jedi Council. She's not acting the way I hoped she would, though. She seems more concerned with optics than the truth, worrying that the political enemies of the Jedi might pounce on even the idea of a former Padawan killing Jedi. She wants to deal with this quickly and discreetly, and that attitude could have serious consequences for an innocent person. That bums me out a little, but it might very well be part of her story and arc. And like I said, it's been a century, and we don't even know how her book story will end. I'm a little taken aback by how she's acting now, but that doesn't mean it's out of line. We just don't have the whole picture right now. On the prison transport, other convicts offer Osha a chance to escape, risking death rather than letting the Jedi deal with them, but she refuses because she has faith in the Order. I have a feeling that's going to change over the course of this series, but for now she is seen as a goody two-shoes, and the other prisoners leave her behind to die. We see her attempting and failing to use the Force, so we know she's long out of practice. She saves another prisoner who is left to die, and then crashes on the icy planet Karlak, which is a planet from the Clone Wars, where Ahsoka Tano happened to meet Bo-Katan Kryze for the first time. And by the way, those droid pilots that can simply turn into chairs are a great and fun design. I really like Sol so far and how they're setting him up to be a father figure for Osha as much as a teacher. He keeps hollows of her, which his current Padawan Jeki asks him about. She thinks he's going against Jedi teachings, holding on to past sentiment and nostalgia, but he explains that meditating on the past keeps us from making the same mistakes over again. I think he's right, and I like his attitude, but I also think it's interesting how quickly Jeki accepts what he says. She seems less straight-laced than, say, Yord, but hangs on every word her master says. We see the detainment level of the Jedi Temple, which we've briefly seen before in the High Republic comics. The crazy prisoner Osha saved is ranting about sensing darkness in her, which is interesting. Right now, I don't think she has anything to do with any murders, but that doesn't mean she can't be driven to darkness just like her sister, especially if she learns some new information. Or maybe there is something special to the link they seem to share. Osha has a vision through the Force where she travels through her past and learns her sister is alive for the first time in 16 years. I thought May was doing that and reaching out, but then she seemed surprised to learn that Osha is alive in Episode 2. It kinda reminds me of Rey and Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi. I wonder if someone else is manipulating both of them through the Force, maybe May's master. Sol and Jeki leave for Karlak to see if they can find Osha, and they bring Yord along, who is caught steaming his mission robes, probably so he can look crisp and clean and perfect. That's some real Cyril Karn energy there, bud. Jeki doesn't seem to like him, but she's not all that different, asking Sol if she has permission to speak freely every time she has something to say. Sol tells his little team about Osha and her twin, a fact that was not in her file and that Yord never knew about despite having known Osha from her time in the Order. That definitely stinks of a cover-up. The Jedi are hiding something. Yord takes one look around the crashed ship and convinces himself Osha must be dead, but Sol feels her through the Force and their connection and gives chase, catching up to her, and they have a moment that feels inspired by The Fugitive chasing down a murder suspect, which is a scene that inspired part of the Clone Wars episode The Jedi Who Knew Too Much. But I'm glad to see Osha doesn't jump and go on the run, but instead goes with Sol. And I'm glad to see that he believes her. It would have been frustrating for the Jedi to keep chasing a false lead when we, the audience, know the truth. The episode ends with May going to meet someone the subtitles simply call the Stranger, the person wielding the red lightsaber we've seen in the trailers, who we assume for now is a Sith. They give a speech about how an Acolyte can destroy what the Jedi stand for. Attacking a Jedi with a weapon doesn't do anything. People have faith in the Jedi. People were upset by Endara's murder. But part of Palpatine's ultimate goal is to force the Jedi into the Clone Wars, muddying their reputation and their principles until the average Republic citizen no longer idolized them. It's too early to see the full plan, but I figure the Stranger is manipulating May's grief to get that snowball rolling. It'll take another 100 years, but this series could be the start of the Jedi losing their luster in the eyes of the galaxy. I will say the episode ends very abruptly, both of them do. I think the reunion between Osha and Sol would have been a more satisfying end to the episode, but I guess they wanted to give audiences a tease for the Stranger. Fortunately, we can move right on to episode 2. On the planet Olega, we follow May on another attempted murder. I like that maybe every episode could start out with her mission and then the Jedi attempting to keep up. She waltzes through the temple without a problem, and I think that could be because Jedi robes aren't quite as standardized at this point, or it could be that the Jedi work more freely with the citizens of whatever planet they're on. May fails to kill a Master Torban, who is quietly floating and meditating and has a cool invisible force shield bubble around him. Osha bonds a bit with Jeki, while Yord complains that she's not restrained. He is still convinced that she is the murderer and will escape. Joseph Scrimshaw from Force Center Podcast joked that Yord could be Ki-Adi-Mundi's master down the line, and while I think that's funny, I also think Yord could absolutely be part of his lineage. He is so sure of himself every time he speaks, and he's almost always wrong. The Jedi Order is ready to believe Sol, though. Vernestra tells Sol about Torban's attempted murder and readily admits that Osha couldn't have done it. I'm really glad we're not spending a lot of time hemming and hawing over whether or not Osha is the killer. I would much rather keep things moving along. I like that Yord complains again, but shuts up once Sol says he got Jedi approval. May goes to get some help from a friend of sorts named Kymir. He knows all about her mission, and we also learn that in order to please their master, May needs to kill a Jedi without a weapon. But right now, she needs a poison to get through Torban's force shield, and Kymir obliges while he talks about the Jedi. I love that we get the line from the trailer where he says the Jedi justify their galactic dominance in the name of peace, but peace is a lie. But this time, May cuts him off and finishes the sentence for him, annoyed by it. They're both quoting the start of the Sith Code. Peace is a lie, there is only passion. I thought Kymir might have been trying to sneak that in from the trailer, but here it seems like they're both familiar with the meaning behind those words. At the very least, they both seem to know about the Sith. I still don't trust Kymir at all. May threatens him if he tells their master she used a poison, and part of me is like, he might be the master, just manipulating you into killing Jedi and potentially bringing to light one of their past crimes. Whatever is going on, May has a fearful relationship with her master. Meanwhile, we see Osha Osha have a nice conversation with her former master about a tattoo she got. Again, they have a very nice parent-child relationship. They reflect on the night May supposedly died, and Osha assures Sol that what happened that night wasn't his fault. I'm not so sure based on everything that's going on, because May breaks back into the Olega Temple and is able to break Torben out of his meditation. She mentions that he took the Barash vow, which was an oath some Jedi took as a form of penance. If they did something they regretted, they would usually go off on their own to commune with the Force. It seems like Torben may have just shut down and gone silent for a decade instead. So, what does he regret? We aren't allowed to know yet, but it's pretty telling that he would rather drink poison than admit to what really happened back then. All he says is that they thought they were doing the right thing. So Indara, Torben, Kelnaka, and Sol did something that night on May's homeworld. They're saying May started a fire that killed her family, but I doubt that very much. I also think it's more complicated than saying the Jedi started the fire. Maybe they had an impossible decision to make, but whatever happened probably didn't look good, so they left information out of the official report. The Jedi, of course, show up too late to stop Torben's death, and Osha arrives first, having been led there by another vision of her sister. It looks bad for her, but then Yord of all people clears her name. Again, I am glad we're not spending a lot of time throwing suspicions at Osha, and it's nice that Yord is able to come around to trusting her. But his good moment doesn't last long. The Jedi track down Kymir, figuring he supplied May with the poison, and Yord gives the most by-the-book strategy to question him. But Jeki is able to think outside of the box given their current situation and assets, so they send Osha in to pretend to be May to get a confession out of Kymir, and it works. Well enough, I think. I'm still very suspicious of Kymir, so I wonder if he's just playing along, pretending to be tricked, and giving just enough away, but not too much. They plan a trap to capture May, and Sol and Osha fight over who gets to confront her. Osha is mad because, for all she knows, May killed her family and destroyed her life, but Sol shuts her down, saying she's too angry and full of grief, and that he has to confront May alone. But I wonder if he's also trying to keep some things buried. He might be afraid May will drop some truth bombs if given the chance. We get another cool fight, and again, I think it's great that the Jedi are relying more on martial arts here rather than going straight for their lightsabers. I do wonder why May's master wants her to do the same, but I'm sure we're going to find out more about that. She eventually gives up again and goes for her knives, but the reveal that Sol grabbed them all mid-fight was pretty slick. He tries to read her mind and sees that May doesn't even know who her master is, and this is where we learn that she thought Osha was dead, which is very interesting. They both come face to face, and Osha misses her stun shots as May escapes in a speeder. I think she missed intentionally, which is also interesting. I really can't wait to see those flashback scenes. I like that the mystery isn't a whodunit so much as a whydunit. What are the Jedi hiding, and why does May want to kill them all? May tries to kill Kymir for selling her out, but he shows a bit of combat training of his own, overpowering her. I've still got my eyes on you, Kymir. He makes up for his betrayal by promising to get her to Kofar, the planet where her next target lives, and the final scene introduces us to the planet and the Wookiee Jedi Kelnaka. He scares off some scavengers and breaks a blaster rifle in half with his bare hands, and once again, the episode ends rather abruptly. That's my only big criticism of the series so far, is each ending has me going, oh, it's over. Andor did that in some episodes too, resolving in arcs rather than individual episodes. The Acolyte seems like it wants to end with a tease of what's to come next, which is fine, but like I said, those endings are very sudden. Other than that, I am into this mystery. I definitely want to dive into those flashbacks and hope it doesn't happen before too long, and of course, we've got the mysterious stranger and his red lightsaber on the horizon. Those scenes look like they might take place in a forest, so it might happen next week on Kofar. I look forward to more exploration into how the Sith are operating in secret right now, but I think it's pretty messed up that they seem to be preying on the genuine grief of others, pushing them into murder. But it's true to life. People in power or in the media or online will stoke fear and anger to bring out our worst instincts. I hope the Acolyte keeps digging into that. But I think I've said enough for now, so let me know what you thought of the Acolyte's premiere episodes in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Acolyte coverage, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page, where we'll release our video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode as they come out. As always, thanks for watching, and for light and life.